Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Jim Stroud podcast. Today I have a very special guest. Special guest, tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Morning, Jim. Bob Lucas. I'm Chief Revenue Officer for MBO Partners. I've been with the organization for a little over 10 years now, but over 40 years in the contingent workspace. So I'm here to talk to you everything about independent workforce.
Wow, that's a big topic.
It
That's,
is a big
that's a big
topic
topic.
and getting bigger.
Oh yeah. You know what's really interesting about that, and I guess the world of work in general, so many changes have happened.
Yeah.
Like the traditional job is on life support, between COVID aftershocks, tech disruption, and a workforce that's sort of done with the 9 to 5 charade, as I call it. How does today's working world really look today from the worker's seat, you think?
Well, from the worker's seat, I think you're absolutely right. I think, American companies broke their contract with American workers a long time ago, right? There's no more
Mm,
pensions. My dad's day, right? Back in the day, you worked 40 years, you got a gold watch, pat on your back, but you were taken care of by that company moving
yeah,
forward. That stopped a long time ago. And, our data tells us, and by the way, we're in our 15th year of our State of Independence report. It's coming out next month. Our data tells us now that the American workforce now says, hey, while the companies turn their back on us, we're now going to forge our own path. And, the numbers are saying there's over 72 million independents in America today, and it's the fastest growing part of the workforce. So, I think companies are now starting to recognize and catch up. Some of the more forward-thinking companies are catching up. And then I think the ones that haven't recognized that society wants to work in this fashion are sort of, they're laggards. They're in the background and they're missing out on talent.
interesting. You mentioned forward-thinking companies. What would you say the smarter companies are doing right now
Yeah.
to tap into the let's put them on the label independent talent
Yeah.
without tripping over uh, I'll say passe ideas. Don't say old ideas.
Yeah.
maybe maybe even outdated ideas like job security or career ladders. 'Cause I'm not really sure those things exist anymore.
No, I think you're right. I think the more forward or progressive looking companies are
Mm.
actually looking at independence or the contingent workforce in a strategic fashion as opposed to reactive. Contingent labor has been around forever. As I said, I started out in this industry as a contractor a million years ago, and it was very much reactive. It was, okay, I've got a short-term project. I'm going to bring in some temps to do some work for me. And I think as society has changed, and now you've got higher level, higher skilled talent now saying the only way I'm going to work is an independent. The companies that are more progressive are saying, I'm going to look at this workforce strategically and I'm going to make this part of my overall workforce. And instead of looking at a temp as someone who's going to fill a role for a short period of time, companies now saying my overall mix of workers are going to be a combination of things. It's going to be full-time workers, it's going to be outsourced professionals, it's going to be independent workers, gig work. So they're now looking, in some of the more progressive companies are looking at the total mix of workers as a strategy as opposed to being reactive.
I, I think, and I see what you're saying, but I think that would give some workforce planners some sleepless nights because everything's evolved so much. You got your full-time employees, you got your contractors, you got your gig workers, and they're all playing in the same fields, but by different kind of rules. How do workforce planners deal with all that, you think?
Not well. Well, yeah, I don't know that anyone from a workforce planning perspective has mastered it yet. I think there are some who have gone out and said, look, we're going to set some goals and we're going to try to hit our goals. And it could be a certain percentage of my workforce is going to be what we would call full-time independent, if you will. That says I've got this workforce that, 5% of my workforce is going to be independent. And while we say they're full-time, they still, though, have that flexibility should projects change or economy change, they can toggle up and toggle down. But again, they're starting the year at this percentage of my workforce is going to be independent, and I'm going to build that into both my costs, how I operate, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, yeah. Although I think that's a hot topic, well, for workforce planners for sure. I think the biggest hot topic right now is AI
Yeah.
and how it's impacting the workforce in general, from onboarding to offboarding, and everything in between. How do you think companies are reacting to all this change with AI? You think they're reacting well? You think they're still trying to figure it out? What do you think?
Yeah. From what we see, right?
Yeah,
There's a certain amount of AI. There's going to be jobs that are going to be just taken over because of AI, and most of those are going to be your lower level positions. They're going to be replaced by the machine.
sure.
How, though, we're integrating and the industry's integrating AI into the process is interesting. Even in our own company, we're doing things that were manual tasks in the past that now we're replacing, with AI that says, even things that say follow up with a candidate or follow up with an individual, right? All of that now happens with AI versus someone sending an email, manually sending an email or making that phone call. So the industry is now starting to leverage AI for the process and systems and companies like Beeline that are building that into their technology so that we take the friction out of the process. I think friction has been one of the main drawbacks of this industries for a lot of years. And the more we can do to take that friction out and get folks onboarded quicker, the better off we are for the companies and for the talent.
One thing I sort of wonder in the back of my head about all that what you said is with AI being implemented in everything, people are going to be, reskilled, I guess, in some companies to adapt and whatnot, and they're going to become more valuable in the long term. Do you think that if someone is being upskilled in AI and become more AI literate, for lack of a better word, do you think that should reflect their salary? Because, like, let's say I'm working at company X, I take their AI classes. I'm now more skilled in AI stuff, which is
Yeah.
a um, hot thing now. Should I start getting paid more because of that? What do you
Um,
think? And
yeah,
how does
well,
that factor in with the other
yeah.
workers?
Well, look, I think that's through the years as technology has evolved, as people
Yeah,
learn hot skills, right? The more skills you learn, the more marketable you made yourself. And we've seen those things ebb and flow. I mean, you go back to, COBOL and C plus and those things, right? Once folks learn those languages, they made themselves more marketable and their rates went up over time as more and more people learned. And those things became sort of mainstream. Rates came back down, and there were new languages to learn and new operating systems to learn. And I think AI, it'll probably wind up being the same as today. Folks are scrambling for people who know AI, right, and the different languages and how to actually model the data. At some point, I think that levels out and there'll be something else new that comes along that will drive those rates up.
sure, sure. When I think about rates, I'm thinking about, well, kind of a weird mindset in my head, my weird way my mind thinks sometimes. I'm thinking about rates. I'm thinking about classification, right? How you classify the workers, because that impacts salary and other things like that. And it makes me wonder, how scared should companies be about screwing up classification when it comes to independent contractors? Are we talking fines, lawsuits, or career-ending headlines? What do you think?
Uh, Yeah, I don't know about career-ending headlines. I think what we have found, and again, this is what we do here at MBO for the last 30 years is classification.
Yeah.
Um, the companies that try to dabble in it themselves, those are the folks that probably aren't going to stay up on some local regulation in some city, within a state that sort of tweak the rules a little bit. I think that the companies who have gone from we used to do it ourselves to we're now going to go outsource that to a set of professionals. Those are the companies that feel pretty comfortable, right? And their independent workforce has grown through the years because now they've got someone handling that.
Mm.
Look, it's a full-time job between court cases, local laws, federal laws that are constantly changing. We have to stay up on it. But once you do, and once you understand the implications of either that court decision or that new law that's coming out, you build that into your rubric and how you go out and classify folks. And it's become pretty mainstream.
You mentioned laws. I'm thinking, are enterprise companies better off then? Because I imagine they have an employment lawyer on retainer because these laws, they shift faster than your onboarding process.
Yeah, they
And,
do.
yeah,
They,
and I'm
they,
wondering,
they,
how
they
can
do.
companies stay compliant without being too slow to compete? And I'm thinking an employment lawyer on retainer. What about the
Yeah.
smaller companies?
Yeah, and again, even an employment lawyer, they're going to be mostly concerned with employment law relative to their full-time employees, right? Because
Mm,
that's going to be what they're first care about is that full-time workforce that they have. So the laws around independent workers, because it goes beyond employment law, right? It goes
yeah.
to tax law, right? And it'll go all the way, into how the job is actually set up and structured and control and things of that nature, which has nothing to do with employment law. So I think it goes beyond just an employment lawyer. So, you'd have to arm yourself with a good tax lawyer, a good employment lawyer, and then, maybe a California law, specific law lawyer or someone in Massachusetts. Because now, as I said, some of the states now are either passing laws or there have been court cases within that state that you're going to be treating independents differently than you may in Texas or Ohio. So I think what we've seen is that companies are abandoning trying to do it themselves and they're going and outsourcing most of that work nowadays.
Interesting. Now I know platforms like Beeline claim to cut through the red tape of traditional hiring. From your vantage point, how are companies weaponizing this technology to outmaneuver old school hiring constraints?
Yeah, I don't know that it's weaponizing it. That's an interesting choice of words, Joe. I think what technologies like Beeline are doing is it's enabling companies to now tap into all of the different flavors of workers, if you will. And I remember talking to Doug Levy years ago, the CEO of Beeline, and Doug mentioned what he wanted their platform to be was to be able to accommodate all types of workers that weren't full-time workers. So everything from the gig workers to a shift worker to high-end, high-skilled independent professionals that MBO deals with. So with the acquisition of MBO now, Doug's adding to their platform so that as a company wants to engage any type of worker, they're able to do it through the Beeline platform. And once again, take that friction out and allow those workers to seamlessly show up for work, report their time, could be reporting time, in a shift fashion. So all of the things that go around contingent workers in general, that's what the Beeline platform is trying to accommodate.
Well, that's good news for contingent workers because I think I feel like they get treated like afterthoughts in workforce strategy. And I sometimes ponder the fallout because of that. Where do you think are the biggest blind spots and risk in dealing with, excuse me, contingent workers?
You know, I would say some of the blind spots or risks that I've seen is not actually um, pulling them in, right? And our data tells us, the independents as we surveyed them, you know, why do they do what they do, and why do they engage with the clients that they engage with? Because they don't have 100 clients. They engage with the same 4 or 5 clients throughout their career and keep going back and forth. And what we keep hearing over and over is that they're put on projects where they can actually contribute and they're made to feel part of the team. So there's ways of making an independent feel like they're part of the team without co-employment risk. And that's where
Mm,
companies say, well, we can't, you can't have them at the Christmas party because that none of that stuff matters. You can pull an independent in and make them part of that team so that that project is as rewarding to them as it is to that full-time equivalent. And I think the companies that don't do that aren't utilizing those independents the way the independents want to be utilized. And they run the risk of not being able to access that top talent. Because if no one wants to go work there, for whatever reason, whether it's lack of engagement or let's say their payment terms, they don't pay the independents on time or things of that nature, or they have outrageous insurance requirements. All of those things are just impediments to having an independent want to engage with that client. So there are some missteps that we see companies take.
sure, sure. Looking ahead, who do you think is going to own the future of work? Would it be the most independent workers who control their own game, or the most integrated ones, who know how to plug into bigger ecosystems?
Yeah, I think it's the integrated, right? I don't know, if we look back in history, companies in the tech field, right? They were using, half their workforce was contingent 20 years ago. So it's not really the number of independents that you have working for you. It's how you actually engage with those independents and how you integrate them into everything from your upfront planning to how you're actually going to deliver projects back to your clients. I think those are going to be the companies that are the most successful is the integration of those independent workers.
Okay. That being said, would you encourage someone who just entering into the workforce to think of themselves as a independent, or should they
Yeah.
position themselves to be a company worker? What's the
The
best advantage?
fastest growing cohorts are the younger workers. Our data shows us that the amount or the percentage of Gen Z, right, went from 19 to 28% year over year. That's growing. The millennials are growing. The percentage that's slowing down, of course, are the boomers, myself, right? That we're aging out of the workforce. So, we see that happening. But the younger workers, and the Department of Labor put out some statistics that said if you're under, 40, you're going to change jobs every 4.5 years. And if you're under
Yeah.
30, change every 3.5 years or something like that. So what that tells us is the younger workers they don't even know about the American dream that says you could work somewhere for 40 years. They didn't see their parents have that. So
Right.
they're coming out of school saying, hey, I can now go find a job on one of the platforms because that number's gone up dramatically. 49% of all independents found a gig last year on an online platform. So now with the advent of technology, if my children were coming out of college, I would have them go look in one of these platforms, go find something that you enjoy doing and you love. And now you're in control of your career, not your boss, not the company. You can be in control of your career. I think more and more younger workers are going to go right out of school and they're going to go and freelance for a while before they, land on a full-time
I
job.
think you're right. I mean, work-life balance has always been a concern for workers in general, but
Yeah,
it seems like it's even more pronounced with Gen
yeah,
Z for sure.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, and again, our data tells us that the overwhelming majority uh, of people, the reason why they do this is because they're in control and they can go and choose the work that they want, when they want to do it, where they want to do it. So it puts people back in control of things. And, you know, it, again, I started out young in this and went permanent after that. And we see that. Nobody really stays in one way or another. We see folks go, full time, then they'll go and do independent work for a number of years, and they might go back full time. And the data continues this year to tell us that that's continuing to happen. So I don't think anybody's ever going to have a label that says you're either this or this. I think they're going to, go back and forth in between.
Yeah. Between enterprise level companies and small business companies, which ones do you think value contingent workers more?
It's a great question. Um, I'm not sure it's small or big. I think it's more company culture. I think that there are some very large enterprises that their culture is very entrepreneurial, which also lends themselves to, hey, we'll find the best talent, engage with them any way we need to, right, to get the best talent. And then you can have some small or medium-sized companies that their culture is very much, no, this is how we do it, and we don't bend from our rules. So I think it's more culture than size of company.
I could see that. I could see that. Um, you certainly know a lot about this stuff. If somebody
I,
wanted to reach out to you for more information, how could they find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to our website, www.mbopartners.com, and all information relative to anything you ever wanted to know about the independent workforce, you'll find there a lot of research, a lot of data, and 30 years that we've been in business. We like to think of ourselves as a thought leader. And, we're here to educate both the independent worker and the enterprise themselves.
Bob Lucas, thank you for your time. I appreciate you. Thanks for being on the Jim Stroud podcast.
Jim, thanks for having me. Have a great afternoon.
Well, my time is up. I thank you for yours. I'll see you again real soon right here with a brand new episode of the Jim Stroud Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to me. I can be reached by email at jimstroud@jimstroud.com. And one last favor, if I may ask, please rate this podcast. 5 stars is preferred, but please comment with your honest opinion. I really appreciate that. All right? Okay, until next time, bye-bye.